What is going on, everybody? I go by Philly Mike, host of the Philly Talk podcast, and we are live today, May 14th. It ain't 8 p.m. Shoot, we could have been live probably around 3:30 with Eric Eagle X and O's decisiveness to figure out the 2025 Eagle schedule with some of the leaks via the beat reporters. Then he crossed his T's, dotted his I's, and we got it. Now, we didn't make this graphic, and shout out to Saquon's parody count on Twitter for posting it. But the guy below me, Eric, is the one who pretty much posted what he believes the Eagle schedule was. First, everybody's running with it. Even the biggest Twitter count on Twitter, Eagles Nation, they got like 100,000+. They already got that up there too. So the official 2025 schedule release at 5:38. This is Eagles X and O. How you doing today?
I'm great. I've been excited to get on here. We've been talking for a while, trying to do something together. So really excited to kind of connect with your audience and throughout the whole season, hopefully. So I think for people who don't know me, I kind of am on the football nerd side of things. So I think it'll be kind of a good dynamic between me and you.
Yeah, for sure. Shout out to the first football nerd we had on the channel, Gate City, and we wish him well too. Definitely want to collab with him. But if you don't follow Eagles X and O on Twitter, go do that for the really nitty gritty when it comes to all 22 contracts. I mean, when you want to ask salary cap stuff, he'll definitely break it down. He had what was your thing that you created about free agents and stuff again? Because it was down to the dollar sign.
Yeah, so I created an algorithm to predict free agent contract values before they signed. And I got lucky and I was able to predict a lot of players right on the nose. And that kind of took off, as well as creating my own NFL statistic called Oasis, which is an improvement on an existing stat called expected points added. That kind of describes the value of each play. So that's been pretty cool this offseason. I hope to just keep building on that, throughout this year.
For sure. If you're just tuning in, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Like I said, follow us both on Twitter. Let's get into this Eagles 2025 schedule, and I'm definitely going to want to hear from y'all in the chat as well. When you first look at it, we talked a little bit backstage. The word brutal comes to mind, right? Explain what was your first consensus, your thoughts when you saw this leak by leak, and then it started to fill in.
There's definitely some oddities here. You got Tampa Bay away when it's brutally hot once again, third season in a row. Commanders and Giants both playing twice within 3 weeks span. The nice part about that is I'll just be able to regurgitate my scouting report and, make small tweaks for what worked and what didn't for each team. And then it alternates home and away the entire season. You never have 2 home games twice in a row. There's one instance of 2 away games twice in a row, just because with the odd number of games now with the NFL schedule. But, it's clear that Goodell was pissed about the tush push and was kind of putting it to the Eagles here.
For sure. That's the first thing that stood out to me. The lack of consistent consecutive home games. It's like every team at least has them back to back somewhere in the schedule, and for it to be like really bounce back and forth is wild to me. And I know a lot of people love the primetime games, and I'm all for primetime games. But I love my Sunday routine, waking up, 1:00 games, getting your pregame in around 11:30, 12. Like, I really do think that for tailgate, for all that fun stuff, and even just doing content, I love my 1:00 games. But it is what it is. When you are a Super Bowl champion, they're going to want to see you in the brightest lights. I mean, we play on Monday, Tuesday. We play every day of the week pretty much throughout the 2025 season. What was your initial thoughts on Dallas being week 1, though? Like, right there.
I'm here for it. I think Dallas, they've been talking a lot of smack because of how their, previous season transpired, and they feel like they're going to be back on the map this next season. So the proof is going to be in the pudding week 1. Just remind me, that first game, is that away or home?
Oh, of course it's home. We dropping the banner. You
Okay.
know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So home game against Dallas, you have a chance to make a statement right there. So I'm pumped for it. I know some people they like the divisional games at the end, kind of build up the hype, but I think it's a great way to get the season started. How about for you?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely woke up Twitter, the trash talking portion of Twitter, as much as the Commander fans try to get in it heavy since they made it to the NFC Championship game last year with us. It's still Cowboys, Eagles. They always are going to go back and forth. And the George Pickens trade definitely spiced things up. You got two weapons for Dak Prescott. I like the rest of my Eagle fans and subs in here and followers, not a big fan of Dak in the postseason, but I can give Dak his credit for what he does throughout the season. The dude can sling the rock at times. He's had Philly numbers at times, but this is a different Philly team. As much as they want to bring up his record versus us and blah, 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 it's like you guys hate talking about the past. You hate when we talk about your past, but now you're talking about Dak carving up Carson Wentz teams and Ronald Darby defenses and guys who don't exist no more. This is a different Eagles team through and through. When we first got Vic Fangio on the squad, now we didn't play Dak Prescott last year. It was Cooper Rush twice. Fangio was supposed to be the Dak destroyer anyways. What he was able to do even in Miami with a defense that is good on paper but was injured. So you look at all that. I'm not really worried about them. However, week one can go any way. And that will be a hard pill to swallow as Eagle fans coming off a Super Bowl run, banner drop for the non-playoff Dallas Cowboys to come in here and beat us. That would hurt. People would take that loss a little too hard, but I don't think it's going to happen, to say the least. But then you go right to Kansas City, and I was ready, and I wanted that rematch, right? The 59 rematch. I thought it would be a primetime game, maybe in the middle of the season, so both teams can say they're ready. Like, you're not playing your best football week 1, 2, and 3. Like some people are, but you want to be where you're at in the middle to the end of the season. You want to finish strong, right? Look at us, 2-2 last year until we got that ugly bye week at 5, but it really catapulted the whole season. All that being said, for it to be week 2, not prime time, and again, it's their home opener. So as how bad their fans felt this whole off season, that's going to be their home opener. I think that's a tough one. And again, you don't really get to see, are we Kansas City Chiefs ready, or the Chiefs, are we Philadelphia Eagles ready, because it's so early in the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I watched the video with the NFL schedule makers and they really do think about the narratives. And if they put that like week 10 or later, that whole Super Bowl rematch narrative might have worn off by then. So they wanted to stick it in the front of the season. That's kind of me speculating. But
Makes sense.
listen, I'm a guy who I want to be tested early, especially you're like with Fangio, even the new OC. See what's broken and fix it. Last year it worked amazing. After a week 6 or 7, roughly, they just took off. I actually expect similar growing pains next season. So I'm actually happy. They're going to see they're going to be tested offensively against KC, against Denver for sure, which is nice. And then defensively, they're going to be tested by almost all of those first 4 opponents.
Yeah, I do see the first 4 tough, and the first 3 quarterbacks are all guys that can sling the rock, and so the defense losing a lot of pieces, still got some of the guys like you talking about, Jalix Hunt stepping up, taking a bigger role, more Jomo, who he will be breaking down tomorrow on the Eagles Pin Pool Network on YouTube. Definitely go subscribe there if you want to see the Moro Ojomo All 22 breakdown, what he believes we're going to get from him in 2025. I don't mean Ty Robinson won't play. Don't get too all worked up. Ty Robinson going to get some PT too. Fangio likes to rotate a lot. But yeah, Cowboys, Chiefs, Rams, that's interesting. Again, you finished 3-0 there. You're feeling really good. 2-1. Again, it's hard to really say. And I know that everybody loves to play the game is let's predict. Again, by the middle of the seasons, we got to see what teams are injured here, injured there. That all plays a part of it, but it's still fun to do. But if the Eagles can start out, 4-0, 3-1, and then 4, then we are riding off the Super Bowl we are continuing that Super Bowl caliber team, and we're looking to really turn up this season if we can do that, because I do think it's a tough stretch, especially playing week 4 in Tampa, which has low-key been our kryptonite, you know what I mean? Early, hot, and it's just the Bucks defense and whatnot get to us sometimes.
Yeah, and it is, if you really look at it, the away games is quite a gauntlet. And I think that's another good test, because you get in the playoffs, and like, to me, those away games against strong opponents throughout the season, those are what are most predictive of what you're going to be in the playoffs. And people are not going to like to hear this, but the Eagles are going to have a really tough time getting a bye. So they might have to play right away and against one of these teams that they face in the regular season.
Yeah. So again, we kind of left off around the Rams. That home game should be interesting. We talked a little bit about the Bucks. Week 5, we got Denver at home. Their upcoming team featuring a young quarterback in Bo Nix. They got the defensive player of the year in Patrick Surtain, even though cough, Zach Bones. I'm just mad that he was, not only did he not finish first, he was last of the 5 finalists too. And just like based off name, you got guys, who was it? Trey Henderson finished ahead of him, I believe. JJ Watt, of course. TJ Watt, of course. And it's great players, but when they won, they had better seasons and blah 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 blah. But it is what it is. How you feel about the Denver, and do you see that as more of a, once you get past them first 4, Denver is like not an easy team, but it's like you're back home. You'll know what your team is at least through 4 weeks, and that might be to either get right or
I gotcha. I don't think so. I think Denver is constructed in a similar way to the Eagles. Obviously, they're not as good, but in terms of being a ball control team with a really good defense against the pass or a run, they kind of mirror the Eagles. So you could kind of expect a low possession, potentially low scoring game, and in those games, converting to touchdowns and keeping the other team to field goals tends to be the difference. I don't see that as we can relax game. I think that'll be a highly competitive game, and it'll be a really good test for the Eagles offense.
Yeah. And honestly, if we're just looking at teams on paper, I think Denver is suited to be a more challenging team than the Bucks. I'm just looking at it as it's a week 4 on the road, hot, and we've known it's just the Bucks. We've beat them once or twice in these last 10,000 times we played them, but they normally have our name. So I'm thinking the Denver Bronco as a team is more solidified, or a tougher opponent, but I like us at home there and all that. I just feel like through the first 4, coming off a Super Bowl run, we saw the panic last year, right? The panic was there. And like you said, we didn't have the Broncos in week 5. We had the bye week. So the panic was even louder at the bye week of week 5 due to the fact that we lost to both the Falcons and Buccaneers. You know what I mean? Teams that were like, come on now. But see, the difference was there was a little bit more panic, I think, last year at the 2-2 because of the collapse. So the 2023 collapse, and then we saw 2-2 starts. Like, bro, are we still stuck in this? What's going on? So I think this 2025 Eagle team should be given grace. Even if you come out 2-2, there should be a grace of, hey, we just did it last year. Why can't we do it again this year? Even though we went from the 4th easiest schedule per projections before the season starts. Again, these are projections before the season starts. Now we got the 4th hardest per projections before the season starts.
And I think we'll really find out who this team is. We had a stretch last year, maybe 7 or 8 games where we played patsies. And I'm sitting there evaluating the tape. I'm like, all right, we look great, but like we dominate at every position. What can I take out of this? Does this translate if we go against a Detroit or Minnesota, which we actually avoided in the playoffs? That's not going to happen this year. In fact, we're almost guaranteed to play a playoff opponent in the regular season. And so I think it'll be a really good a way to determine what is this team truly good at and not, and probably early on. Patullo, I mean, talk about a welcome to the NFL. You've got KC, then the pass rush of LA, then the max blitzes from Bowles, and then Denver's dominant defense, like 4 in a row. So he's really going to get up to speed quickly.
I love how you skipped over that Cowboys defense, and rightfully so. You know, they got Michael Parsons over there, but they still have a lot to desire defensively. That Pickens trade is all offensively help, but they definitely could use. They're talking about trying to get Stephon Gilmore's deal. They still talking about needing a D tackle, blah, blah, blah. So they're having their fun on Twitter, but I like how you skipped over their defenses as it pertains to Kevin Patullo getting it right, because the Rams, Jarrett Verse and them, the Bucks, just Todd Bowles, as you said, and the Chiefs, you know, Chris Jones, and they're gonna be that. Listen, for as loud as the link is, that what's it called? Arrowhead Stadium. That stadium loud. And that's gonna be their home opener. So they're definitely gonna get loud and proud. Green Wingman with the $10 super chat. The Cowboys are not deserving of sharing the field on opening night with the Super Bowl champs. Washington, LA, or Chicago would have been a better opponent due to relevance and better talent. Hey, I co-sign the deserving part, but I would love to just smack on the Cowboys real quick, because you know they're the ones talking. They act like they forgot everything that happened last year. So I understand what you're saying, Green Wingman, on a deserving spot. Chicago, off the strength of their young talent and their new mastermind head coach, Ben Johnson. LA, formidable opponent. You could say they played us the toughest as it pertains to the playoff run. They played us tougher than the Chiefs, the Packers, and the Commanders. And then the Commanders, simply because they try to make them the NFC darlings, right? Jaden Daniels. You got to run it back, man. One good rookie season. I'll give him it. It was a great season. Can't take nothing away. But consistency is what the NFL pays for, not one-offs. So we'll definitely see how that goes. What's your thoughts on Green Wingman's super chat?
Well, like you mentioned earlier, they didn't get a chance to play against Dak. It was, I mean, candidly, their roster was decimated. It wasn't a true test of the teams there. And I think the NFL has pinpointed that as like, okay, now that these teams are going to go in full strength, let's pit them up against each other, drum up the hype, storied rivals. And so I agree with him that they're not necessarily deserving in terms of, you know, what these teams did last year. But for just the storylines, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's definitely going to spice up the rest of the offseason on Twitter if you guys are on there just listening to the back and forth. Real quick, let us know in the comment section, first 4 weeks, what is your record prediction? Again, it's silly, it's fun, but it's just for giggles at this point. Shout out to Green Wingman with the $10 super chat. All super chats are appreciated. Like I said, let us know your record prediction in the first 4 before we continue. Talk a little bit more about Denver before we move on to week 6. Like I said, 4-0 is perfect, but if we come out of there 3-1, I'm solid. Unless the one loss we had, even if the one loss we had is kind of like how did you get beat that bad, or what happened that game? Because it is any given Sunday. But if you give me 3 wins out of these first 4 and the other one, regardless of how it is, I'm cool with it.
Yeah, and I see a comment, something about Tampa Bay. They're the Eagles' kryptonite. I think it's worth noting that, number one, 4 of the last 5, I think, have been away games in crazy heat. One of them, they're missing A.J. Brown, and the other one, they're missing A.J. and Devontae. So we haven't had our full squad. When we did, we beat them pretty easily. So I do understand that narrative, and I do think Todd Bowles gives Hurts specifically issues with bringing 6 and 7 man on the line. I have no idea why Spags didn't max blitz him the entire Super Bowl. Only 25% of the snaps, roughly, did they bring extra guys. Terrible game plan by them. But I'm excited to see what that, like, you know, they're going to be able to challenge Patullo's answers to pressure early on and see what he's got.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. The Bucks, and that is also a good sign is if we get that W to start the first quarter of a quarter and some change, or a little bit less than a quarter of the 2025 season. Like I said, Denver at home, I think they're a formidable opponent, but come back home, especially if you go 2-2 in this. If you go 2-2 in this, you're looking at that week 5 game at home to kind of calm the crowd. And again, they're nothing to look over, but at least it's a home game. And then you got the Giants Thursday night. Is that Thursday night or some type of
yes.
right? Yeah, Thursday night. How do you feel about the Giants with their draft, their team in general? Like they got better, but are you worried about the Giants at all? Like again, any given Sunday, and whenever I do for fun schedule prediction, I always pick a team that we should beat. Just give that an automatic loss on purpose because it's going to happen. Our Super Bowl run, it happened. We lost to the Atlanta Falcons. In 2022, we lost to the Jets. You know what I mean? Or no, that was in 23. We lost to the Commanders with a backup quarterback before they became the Commanders, you know? So you always lose. Even the Chiefs lost to the Raiders before they became this new look Raiders team. Like every Super Bowl appearance team or champion loses to a team that don't make the playoffs. It just happens. It's the longevity. It's the of the season.
Absolutely. Even the Eagles almost lost to the Panthers and Jaguars last year in terrible fashion. So I totally agree with you. Not that said, I don't think it will be the Giants. I think they upgraded their defensive line, which was already the best part of their team.
Their defense, yep.
So that, they still have major problems at quarterback. Although I think obviously Russell Wilson is a dramatic upgrade. I wonder by week 8 if you start to see Dart by then. But the secondary is still bad. I don't necessarily think they're great at stopping the run. And I don't think they have the juice outside of Neighbors to really put up a lot of points. So I don't see that as a letdown game unless it's one of these like throw every single flag on the Eagles type of deals.
Yeah, I hear you. Shout out to everybody in the building. We got almost 350 people in here. Hit the like button. It's free. It's easy. Don't cost a thing. And again, let us know your thoughts on the schedule, your takes just in general, and just some predictions and what you got. Yeah, I'm with you. I think week 6 Giants, it's going to be fun. NFC East game, prime time. Let's see the Philly native play against his favorite team, but that's pretty much it. Y'all can go to sleep early. Y'all don't got to finish the fourth quarter type game. You know what I mean? If you got work early in the morning. Week 7, though, we got the Vikings on the road. How do you feel about this Vikings team?
Real quick, before we move on, I want to address something about that. It is ironic that the Giants now have a diehard Eagles fan at edge rusher, and the Cowboys have 2 of them, Micah and Donovan Ezeraku. So it's funny that the entire NFC East is like littered with guys who wish they were on the Eagles.
Yeah, and Ezeraku's crazy because like he even made a statement like, "I'm glad the Eagles won a Super Bowl last year because it was a great one last year being an Eagle fan." And his dad just posted a video of taking out all his Eagle man cave stuff, and now he got a bunch of, well, not just random Cowboys, but Ezeraku this, Ezeraku that. So that got as a parent, you know what I mean? Like a parent, he's been an Eagle fan. Like Ezeraku's in his 20s, but his dad probably in his 40s been an Eagle fan for his whole life, just starting to see them play their best football. And you got to put it away for at least his rookie contract.
Yeah. I can't imagine what that's like. But I mean, going to the Vikings, originally I did like a quick little prediction thing for fun. Like you said, it really doesn't mean much. And I did put an L for the Vikings, and people are like, how the hell are we going to lose to JJ McCarthy? Once we get to week 7, I'm going to do a very in-depth analysis of the teams up to that point, and my opinion could change. I might say Eagles 40-0. But they're a really good team, top to bottom. They've got talent at all positions. Obviously, it does come down to the quarterback. From the indicators that I've seen and going back and watching some McCarthy tape, I think they've got the goods there. There's a reason they let Darnold go. He played really well up until that disaster in the playoffs. And obviously they invested that high pick. So I think he'll pay dividends. Maybe not year one, but down the line. But that's definitely going to be a great matchup. And then we're going to get to see like Isaiah Rodgers again. That'll be a cool to see him. If presume he's starting.
Yeah, I would think that he would have an opportunity to start over there. And I think he's a decent player, for sure. I'm with you. I think that if you're going to be a young quarterback coming in, you want a team like the Vikings that that can make it a little easier on you. Again, there's a reason why Sam Darnold was on his fourth or fifth team prior to having some success with the Minnesota Vikings. I think I'm a fan of their coach. I'm a fan of how he calls plays for his quarterback. He makes it easier for them, and I can see that. I'm with you. If we're in the week, like real talk, because of the Eagles, who they are, based on my analysis of the Eagles, who they are, my train of thought is we're 55 burger on the Commanders and beat the crap out of the Chiefs. Right now, of course, we lost some players and blah 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 blah, but my thought of the Eagles, there's no one-off on this team that I'm like, yep, the Eagles obviously can't win. But again, any NFL watcher going to know that any given Sunday happens. Last year, we were in a dogfight with the Panthers. After then, we smoked the Chiefs. You see how it works? It's weird. So I would do the same thing. Like if we were going to do it for fun up to week 7, I would have us beat the Cowboys, beat the Chiefs, beat the Rams, lose to the Bucks, beat the Broncos and the Giants, and then maybe lose to the Vikings too. So I would have us again 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5-2-ish by week 7, and that's off the strength of just got to take some lumps. Now again, if we beat the Bucks, that's cool. Now we then might lose into one of the other teams. So it's give or take, but I do see in the Eagles with the tougher schedule still finishing strong. Like, I feel like we're going to win the East. That first round bye is going to be tough, but hey, we didn't get the first round bye last year, and look what happened. You know what I mean? So everybody's shooting for that bye. I think it's tougher, and I like that the NFL did that. How did you feel when they actually changed it to not having 2 teams anymore that get the bye? Were you a fan of it? Are you a fan of it? Or do you feel like there still should be 2 teams? Are you a fan of the extra playoff team and only one bye is what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. It's hard to say. It is appealing for it to be just one because that really puts a premium on getting the bye and rewarding the best team through the regular season.
Unless you're the Lions.
Yeah. It does kind of suck if you go through the whole season and like what happened with like you just mentioned, the Vikings and Lions last year, they happen to have the best records, but they're in the same division. One team kind of gets screwed. So I see both sides of the argument, but I kind of like the one bye because it just ups the competitiveness level right at the end, even if you're a team who knows you're getting in the playoffs.
Yeah, and especially as the NFC keeps getting stronger, you won't have the luxury of sitting if you're, 3 or 4 teams are competing. If you look at the NFC and you say who's the top guys, it's Eagles, Lions, Commanders, Rams, Vikings. Like they're starting to get top heavy to where you might have a three-man race at the end for the first round bye. And so it's interesting because when we do get to week 16, 17, 18, which is crazy to have them opponents, Washington being better than they were in a long time, and a East divisional rivalry, and then the Bills. I was waiting for the Bills. I was waiting I thought the Bills were going to come week 7 through 12 type stuff, but we get the Bills week 17, and we got to see where they are. Are they fighting for home field advantage or first round bye with the Chiefs and the Ravens over there in the AFC and vice versa? So should be interesting. But I hear you where you say, week 7 could be that letdown. You coming off a Denver win, maybe a Giants win. You're going back-to-back road games. It's not a short week because it's a longer week due to the Thursday night game. Who knows? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you go up to there and you get behind and they start blowing that stupid Viking horn, and
Skull.
they've got that defense that's likely to confuse Hurts, and that's where you could run into issues. Top to bottom, I think the Eagles are a better team, but their coaching staff now has a little bit more cohesiveness than the Eagles, replacing the OC specifically. So that's just going to be a pretty big test.
Yeah, I hear you. Anthony Chorback with the $5 super chat. Appreciate the love and support on schedule release day. He says schedule looks solid. I still think we win 12 or 13 games. Week 9 bye is nice. The 3 games after the bye is probably our toughest stretch all year. He's talking Packers, Lions, and Cowboys. And that would be in Dallas, where, again, the Eagles we're better at home wherever we play. So that is a tough stretch. At least we get the Lions in the link and we don't got to go in a dome and play them in a dome. You know what I mean? But
that is probably, is that what do you think that's the toughest 3-game stretch?
3 games. I mean, the first 3-game stretch is because you got Cowboys, Lions and Chiefs, and then Packers and Rams. I probably would agree with him because at least that is 2 home, 1 away compared to 2 away, 1 home. I think, again, teams are showing who they are. So if everybody's right about the Packers being better this year and the Lions being more, the Lions were injured, true, but we're getting in week 11. We'll see how they can stay health-wise. If the Cowboys do put it together-ish, I don't think so. I mean, I think they're going to be better than they were last year. They picked 12th overall, so they only won I forgot how many games, like 7, 6. I don't know. But yeah, that could be. I'm gonna look through as we keep going. But Anthony, that's a good way to point it out. That could be the toughest stretch, and luckily it's coming after a bye because you saw what we did after the bye, man. Vic Fangio changed that defense around.
Do you want to put up that Trey Lucado comment about the Bills? Because I think
before or after
the first one. I think it's an interesting point. Bills in week 17 is odd. But what it makes me think of is in some previous years, we've seen some Super Bowl previews late in the season, AFC versus NFC. So whoever gets their lick there might be able to come back in the Super Bowl and give it to the other team. So look out for a Bills-Eagles Super Bowl.
Plus, it's closer, like as you said, as it's closer to the end of the season, whatever information Jalen Hurts tells Josh Allen about how to beat Patrick Mahomes will be more fresh in his head. Because, you know what I mean? Jalen Hurts knows how to get that job done. And that's one of the struggles for guys like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen to get past the almighty Patrick Mahomes. And you saw that they have the ESPN thing coming out, right? Yo, you know that was worked on before the Super Bowl, right? You don't have a documentary like that. They're kind of doing it like the Last Dance for Jordan, right? So they definitely had some of that stuff filmed prior to the Super Bowl, and they were wanting to finish it with the 3P. I know ESPN is upset.
I actually didn't see that. What do they have coming out?
ESPN has a documentary coming out called The Kingdom, and it's about the Chiefs, and it's the same person who made the documentary of The Last Dance with Jordan. And so there's no way that got filmed from February to now. You know what I mean? No way. So that had to be in the running during the season when they were, and they thought they could possibly 3P. And then, of course, they probably finished it after the Super Bowl. And they I mean, people who do great TV shows, when an actor leaves, they find a good way to write off his death, make it look convincing like they were always going to plan it that way. But no, he just quit. He found a new job. When they lost the Super Bowl, they're going to nip it in the bud quickly. But I know that definitely put a damper on The Kingdom.
It's coming funny. Out. It reminds me of those movies where if it's like based on a true story, at the end, they'll do that roll credits with the text on a black screen. It'll say like the Eagles went on to beat the Chiefs 40 to whatever in the Super Bowl.
Stop it
So,
right up to it. Yeah, stop it right up to February 9th, February 8th.
so actually, I have a question for you. When you think about the Super Bowl, what is the score that you have in your head?
Oh, 34-6.
Yeah, because that
That
score was bogus, right?
Yeah, 22 is nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
they drop a 22 on Tristan McCullen and Sidney Brown. You know what I mean? What are we doing here? Like as soon as the Gatorade was poured midway to fourth quarter, I guarantee there's been no Gatorade poured in any Super Bowl earlier than the Eagles. That got to be a record itself right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
and the Seahawks, when they brutalized the Broncos, that had to have been pretty early on too.
yeah, yeah, they probably did, and that was crazy when they did that to Denver, and that was when Denver had the #1 offense in the NFL. That was like the pure black and white defenses win championship. Don't lie to us. You know what I
It's
mean?
a great point because I think people forget that when they actually won the Super Bowl, it was the corpse of Peyton Manning. They weren't even cooking on offense, and they had that dominant defense, no fly zone.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's just funny looking back.
it is. You're right. Like that, Wes Welker. I forgot the wide receiver. Was it
DT.
Yeah, Demaryius Thomas, like that was Peyton Manning, still prime Peyton Manning, 5,000 passing yards, #1 offense, loses. Then you get to show himself with a defense and wins. Got to build a complete team in the NFL, man. I mean, there's a lot of great players individually, but it's not the NBA. You don't get to play offensive defense. You don't get to take over the game. You got to pass the ball. You can't ball hug in the NFL. You need people to block and blah, blah, blah. Anthony says the season finale of The Kingdom will be fire. Yes. Even if I don't watch the whole thing, I'm watching the season finale for sure. And when I saw that, I thought it was like a joke. I thought somebody just made like a complimation of thing. I was like, you know what? ESPN really doing that? I'm gonna have to see the finale of The Kingdom for sure. Because the kingdom has fell, whatever you want to say. Kingdom down.
I see one of the comments about Fangio, and a question I've been asked fairly often this offseason has like, are the NFL going to figure out Fangio, study him because they were the #1 defense and teams always try to like target whoever was the best. And here's the trick is that he wasn't doing anything crazy. They were just playing really sound defense, like reading their keys extremely well, playing with leverage, tackling, good eye discipline. So the chance that it continues next year, despite the loss of talent, I think is really high. So hopefully that gives Eagles fans some positive outlook.
Yeah, and for me to say in my language is like Fangio. There were certain games where Fangio didn't do nothing that any other DC can't do. But some DCs feel like they have to do too much, which actually hinders their defense. He started to understand the personnel and how good Quinyon was blossoming in his role and Cooper and all that. So when you tell them just to play defense and let their playmaking ability, skill set take over, it's a lot easier. You know what I mean? Like he said they didn't want to blitz Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl because they knew that if they did, he's really good at getting the ball out. He's really good at extending the play. And when you blitz people, you have less guys in coverage. They had blitzes available and ready to use. They just didn't need to do it. And so where other DCs will say, we're not blitzing them, but let's do it anyways to keep them off balance. You don't. And sometimes doing less with actual playmakers is more. And that's where his old school, his 40 years of watching and being a coach come into play. Like being a good coordinator is knowing when to play just a shell defense, not trying to do something that's going to get you. You hear what cornerbacks say. I don't know if you watch, but Slay had Quinyon on his podcast, right? And when they're in the huddle and a DC calls zero, they like, are you kidding me? Like, why are you doing this to me? They don't, it's a corner, even though they're both great corners, you don't want that because you're now that whole side of the field is yours. Don't get beat over the top. And so sometimes doing less is more, and Fangio knows exactly when to do it. And it's going to be a new group of guys, but some of the guys were already on the roster. He got a good look at Jalix Hunt, who's one of his favorites in the Senior Bowl. He's He purposely played Mario Jomo 388 snaps last year for a reason. So I still like the
Yeah.
young bucks in our team and the additions.
It's a great point about certain DCs trying to do way too much. Now, I think Fangio understands it's a team game. If you have a ball control offense who's dominant at rushing, playing this, I don't know what to call it, like defense that's biased towards stopping explosive plays, hunkering down in the red zone and making the other team kick field goals, that's conducive to winning. Whereas you have a team that like struggles to hold the ball, make first downs, and score, obviously, then you start to be like, all right, we need to generate turnovers, guys. Zero blitz, disguise crazy coverages like the Vikings were running, which actually ultimately ended up being their undoing. But I think it's a great point. And going into next year, I know there are a lot of people concerned with how many veterans we lost, but we also saw how the positional coaches were able to get these young guys up to speed. And a little bit of sneak peek for the people who want to watch the Moro Ojomo film breakdown tomorrow, 7 Eastern, Eagles Eric. We're talking about they might have a stud on their hands. This guy blew me away. So now I don't want to give away too much, but just a little teaser there.
Yeah, just I forgot who broke. Somebody did something on TikTok a little bit back. Not really breaking it down, but they just got all his snaps of one-on-ones, and even when he like a lot of people got to understand that you're not just because you don't get a sack doesn't mean you didn't win your rep. You know what I mean? Sometimes just winning your rep and forcing an errant throw or even forcing an early completion where you're like, well, he completed it for 7 yards. Okay. But he had to get the ball out for a 7-yard pass. What if a Jomo don't get there? That could be a 20-yard touchdown. You know what I mean? So little things, you don't get this. You'll never know what the play shoulda, coulda, woulda been if the quarterback checks it down for a 5-yard completion because a Jomo won his rep and got in his face. Then they get the sack, but they got a 5-yard completion. We don't know what it would have been if a Jomo wasn't there. It could be a hail. It could have been a go route touchdown. You just don't know unless you fully look on the back end too and do all that. But a Jomo's a dog. Do you have any little previews? But
yeah,
just good. Like, how do you feel in like 1 or 2 words about his run defense?
Okay, I'll give you the run defense, and then I got a peek behind the curtain, which is he's obviously underweight, but he's able to use his long arms to keep the offensive linemen at bay. He's so quick out of his stance and has such good pad level that when they try to reach block him on outside runs, he can just work laterally with the linemen and get to the edge pretty good. He shows a good corkscrew technique against double teams. This is kind of when the guy screws his foot or his knee into the ground to kind of stop the double team from getting pushed. So the technique is there, the pad level, the effort is tremendous. He just doesn't quite have the upper body strength to get a lot of knockback. You'll live with that. The one other thing is his finishing leaves a little bit to desire. He'll grasp with his arms rather than kind of getting his body behind the tackle, and sometimes that leads to missed tackles. All that stuff is coachable. If he added another 5 pounds to kind of improve his anchor, I think that would be worth the trade-off of what he would lose in burst. But overall, he's solid and can definitely play early downs. One thing I'll say, peek behind the curtain, the 0 sacks thing is total BS. There's official score keepers who designate the stats, and that's why if you look at like PFF or ESPN, they have totally different numbers. And I've looked at everyone who has snaps myself. He had 3 sacks, and I could put up the videos. They just didn't. They didn't give him the credit. I don't know why.
The first one that jumps out to me is it was a half a sack with him and Cooper DeJean in the Cleveland game.
Yeah,
right.
And he got nothing. No, he didn't get a half for that.
Yeah,
he only got 1 sack against the Rams. That was the only credit he got, and that was in the playoffs. So,
yeah, that's the first one that jumps out. I can't really recall any others off the top of the head, but that's the first one that jumps out because he was all over Deshaun.
Yeah, he had a half sack in the Giants game as well. For me, I don't believe in half sacks. Like, if you're the guy who makes first contact and then a bunch of guys, to me, that guy should get a full, and maybe you give the others a half. And by that definition, he had 3 total.
Gotcha. Yeah, so shout out to everybody in the chat. We got over 415 people in here. Hit the like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, all that good stuff. For those asking about if this is the official schedule, again, the Eagles haven't released it yet, but via yesterday and today, all the beat writers, Zach Berman, John Clark, everybody's been finding leaks from their sources and official sources. So when you put it all together, they pretty much gave us like 13 of the 17, maybe 14 of the games, and then Eagle Eric was able to get the rest of them. And then somebody who's just really good at graphics, which I don't know nothing about, formulated this real quick off of it. And so yes, this is going to be the Eagles' official 2025 schedule. The Eagles will release it at 8 o'clock via their website, via their Twitter account. It's going to mirror this. It's a brutal schedule. We're talking about it little by little. We're up to week 8 on the Giants. We took a little break talking other stuff. We're going to finish this, then say some final thoughts about it. Good, bad, ugly, sad. A little fun prediction at the end, or just estimate wins. And feel free to chime in the chat on things you hate about it, things you love about it, players, anything you want to talk about. Like I said, we've been live for about 46 minutes. If you had a notification bell, you would have been here a little bit sooner, but it's all good. Appreciate y'all for coming through. So the away game for the Vikings, week 7. Then we got a home game with the Giants. Another one of them things where it's like Giants. How you feel about that going before you go into the bye?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I don't respect the Giants. I don't think they're a good team. Russell Wilson, when I was scouting the Pittsburgh game last year, I was actually telling people he's playing great. Now, starting at that game, he completely fell off a cliff. Yeah, so he's definitely getting up there. He's probably got 1 or 2 years left. But at the same time, he's much better than what they were trotting out there last year. But I pretty much put 2 W's there for the Giants, barring any major injuries.
Yeah, me too. Even with the any given Sunday, I still got us knocking off the Giants. And then we got that week 9 bye, which is a lot better than last year. Although 2020 hindsight, that week 5 bye couldn't have came at a better time. When you look at this season in its totality of 2024, that week 5 bye was great, although we complained about it all the way up until the week 5. But the week 9 bye is good. It's like right in the heart. It is the heart of the middle of the season. When you look at 18 weeks, only 17 games, week 9 bye, that's good. Now, shout out to Anthony C, who did drop a $5 super chat saying the toughest 3-game stretch after the bye, you got week 10 Packers, primetime. Week 11 Lions, at home, primetime. And then week 12 Cowboys on the road. That probably is the toughest stretch. Week 16, 17, 18 would have been maybe as tough based on playing your rival back-to-back. There's really not much you can switch up in that time, and a formidable AFC team. But who knows who's resting who's playing who? It could be, with how tough the AFC is and how the Commanders are supposed to be this year, they could be 3 dogfight games. That'd be kind of crazy for 3 dogfight games at the end of the season. But before we get to that, Packers week 10, how you feeling right after the bye in Lambeau?
Yeah, and I have a few football nerd friends who are big Packers fans, so I am quite familiar with their roster and everything going on with that team. And they had that weird game in Brazil week 1 last year. I don't think it was indicative of what either team did the rest of the season. And then the Packers got injured pretty badly in a pillow fight first half in that playoff game. Like it was 10-6 at one point. So I expect way more of a shootout in that game, especially coming off the bye. You have both of these teams that are, now that I think about it, Vic Fangio off a bye is kind of OP. So
mastery.
That'll be actually a fascinating matchup because presumably the Packers offense, they'll be better than they were against the Eagles in the playoff game. And now they add Matt Golden. Love is healthy. That was a dramatic difference to his play once he got banged up. So
he played. Shout out to him playing, but that you could tell he was hurt.
Yeah, and he's a guy who thrives out of structure, off-platform throws. So once that goes away, he's not nearly as effective as a quarterback. I'm not big into like predicting something that far away, but I think it'll be a great test and potentially a playoff preview.
Yeah, I agree. I always like to give the Eagles the benefit of the doubt after a bye week. So I'm with you there. Especially not Fangio himself, but Nick Sirianni's been good out of the bye as well. Week 11, we got the Lions though at home, and that's what Amon-Ra St. Brown been waiting for. He wanted us week 1. He had to wait 10 more weeks after week 1 to get us. Hopefully the Lions are healthy. I do think they're going to be a player in the NFC. And everybody who's chiming in saying that the schedule is tough, hey, we agree with you. This is a brutal schedule. Even before it came out, like just who we were going to play, they had us as the 4th hardest schedule per projections of 2024. But when you say home, road, like we don't get no back-to-back. Listen, if you go to the link, you're not going to be able to do it back-to-back all season long, which is, I thought that was the first thing that jumped out to me crazily. We talked about that at the beginning. The fact that there's no back-to-back home games is ridiculous. But Lions, Sunday night, back-to-back primetime games. How do you feel about the Lions in general?
Selfishly, as someone who just loves football X's and O's, I wish that we got to see it versus Ben Johnson's Lions. I wonder to what extent the scheme will try to mirror what they did with him. But obviously they're still talented, and that it'll be a really great matchup for that Eagles defense. In terms of the Lions defense, once they lost Aiden Hutchinson, they were just trying to grasp at straws. But if people recall before that, they were looking really good. So they've got Terrion Arnold came along throughout that season. I still don't understand why they didn't upgrade the other edge more, but that's an awesome matchup just as someone who loves good football.
Yeah. And again, they definitely were riddled with injuries, but all they had to do was hand to Washington, and we could be talking about a rematch NFC Championship game, which we will get to eventually at the end of the season. But the Lions definitely are a hungry team. I'm with you. I'm curious to see how they do when you have the hottest OC on the market, right? Like when as Ben Johnson was being, and as good as he was, and shout out to him. I mean, yeah, I'm not a big fan of the prettiness he throws around. Like having okay, cool, draw up a good play, cool, but like making Penny Sewell throw passes and stuff like, yeah, bro. And that playoff game is like, bro, your quarterback can't throw. Why are you gonna make anybody else throw? Like sometimes it's getting too cute is too much for me. But we will see Ben Johnson not with the Lions later in the season with the Bears. But I do think they're gonna, again, by week 11, they'll be who they are. If we would have caught the Lions week 1, 2, or 3, they could have been fumbling a little bit offensively due to the scheme change, as we got to deal with it similar. Although I think the Kevin Petula change, again, I don't know him as a play caller, but the good thing about him is he's been with Jalen Hurts in his totality almost, right? And he's seen Jalen Hurts with Steichen, Brian Johnson, and Kellen Moore. He's seen them in the good, the bad, and back to good. You know what I mean? Or at least non-turnover-ish in the offense. So it's a new guy play caller, but at least he's been there the whole time.
Yeah, and it's the biggest unknown of the season for sure. And trust me, I've done digging. I've tried to find everything I possibly could, listen to every interview that's available online about Petullo, trying to figure out what this guy's made of. There's nothing. So my guess is
he's just been Nick's right hand man.
Yeah, 100%. And I wonder if it's going to be a committee approach, if you're going to start to see more influence from the analytics team. Sirianni, the Bowling Green coach they brought in, various other offensive assistants. I definitely can see that being the case, and it seems to be that the Eagles are leaning more and more into those analytics, situational play calls, even offensive concepts in general. So that's the biggest unknown and something I'm fascinated to see unfold. Like, if I had to predict right now, I would say it might look similar to that Brian Johnson offense.
Which we know. Listen, the why on the surface when you say Brian Johnson, it brings back nightmares for a lot of people. But if you look broader picture of the 2023 season, the collapse was more indicative to the horrible defense. Like, again, because we were losing so bad and the offense didn't like super lift up the defense, everything just goes to it was just all horrible. But the Eagles had a top 7 or 8 defense. I mean, offense, a top 7 or 8 offense under Brian Johnson / Nick Sirianni, whoever was doing the most there. The only thing I would say is this: if you can get the production, like yards per game, from the Brian Johnson / Sirianni and translate it to the Kevin Patullo thing, I'm okay with it. But you have to run at least. You can't run more than 2 quarterback draws per game, because we still did that with Kellen Moore. But with Brian Johnson, it was like a minimum of like 5 a game. And limit the screens to Smitty and company. Like, that was the biggest thing. Like,
Yeah,
I think in a
absolutely.
vacuum, yards per game, it was cool. Just minus some. If you have 200 screens, whatever screens and draws you have throughout the year, cut it in half. You cut that in half and give us the production, there'll probably be more production.
Yeah, and one of the big bugaboos was their answers to pressure, which
Oh,
Kellen
yeah.
Moore fixed. And I think now that'll live on. Like, once you've figured out like how to set your protections, how to find your hot answers, install site adjustments and peak rules, you've got it. Um, and so I don't worry about that as much. You've also added Saquon. Brian Johnson didn't have that luxury, and AJ Brown was injured in the playoffs. So there was a lot of things that probably gave us the perception that Brian Johnson was worse than he truly was. And that maybe gives some more optimism if it is true that Patullo is in that mold.
Yeah, great points. From my points, cut the 2 things in half: draws and wide receiver screens. And to your point, you add Saquon, and the biggest thing was lack of checks and pressure. And again, Jalen Hurts understands it better via Kellen Moore. Nick Sirianni has worked with Kellen Moore. Same with Kellen Patullo. So as a coach, you don't forget that at all. So I'm with you on that. Now you're going to have to update certain checks and add things in, but for it to just go MIA, that'd be malpractice kind of coaching at all, you know? So I don't think there's any coach in the NFL that's just going to forget something that actually worked through a whole season. So I'm with you there.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And like, going back, their most recent game, the Super Bowl, I bet you they spent several days building in hot answers because they knew that was what the Chiefs' main weapon was. For some reason, the Chiefs didn't blitz
Just didn't do
a
it.
lot. Terrible decision, like I mentioned earlier. Want to address this one comment from Lante here. Ben Johnson effing the offense up. I got to defend him here. They almost put up 40 points, right, in that playoff game. So I agree with Mike here that putting the ball in Jameson Williams' hand, one of the worst decision makers in the NFL, was a bad decision for sure. But like, the offense was doing great. They just had no help on the other side of the ball.
Yeah. And again, you're forced to do them pretty plays, and you're making Goff throw interception after interception because of the lack of run too. You know what I mean? And it also lets Washington get in their bag. Anytime a defensive line can pin their ears back, it makes it a lot easier. They don't got to hesitate. They don't got to think. And, you know, other than the Eagles, Saquon Barkley, you look in the NFC, that's a beast running back group back there. Like, it's almost illegal for any coach to have a backfield like the Eagles or the Lions have and refuse them the ball though too. So I get what you're saying. Like it wasn't balanced, but the production was there. But I feel like, you take away a couple. One of them was a pick six, though, right? Like, wasn't it?
Yeah, that is fair. But I will say Gibbs had 170 odd scrimmage
Yards from
yards.
scrimmage, yeah.
So
he was getting utilized in the pass game. So
yeah, no, I totally respect that viewpoint. Like if you said they should have made it a game control play, like game, try to just control the clock. I definitely see that point of view, but they were
but the
putting up
Lions
30
really didn't do
something.
that all year. They were
That's
putting
right.
up points all year. So I'll give
Yeah.
you that too. I just think that like when again, and it's hard to once you're in the fourth quarter and things already transpired, you can't go back and be like, oh, let me go back in the first corner and run it. Like now you're in that situation. But like when you now look at it 2020 hindsight, you're like a pick six. Maybe if the throws were down, not only do you not throw a pick, but you save 6 on the board because that's crazy. I forgot about the pick six. I don't know if it happened before half or after, but low key, when that was transpiring, I was like, oh yeah, bring on the Commanders. So it was interesting. Shout out to everybody in the chat. We still got about 4:45 in here. We're gonna go a little quicker. We've been live for about an hour. We talked about week 10 and week 11. We're on to week 12. Again, as Anthony said, shout out to him with the super chat earlier. That's probably the hardest 3-game stretch. The first 3 games is tough, probably as tough. One of them is the same team in it, but at least you're home twice compared to away. It's gonna be tough. But Cowboys, how do you feel about that? That's one of them things. Look, I want to sweep the Cowboys. I think we could sweep the Cowboys. But when I always do my 2025 schedule, I take my home game from them and I give them the away game. Now, granted, we swept them last year. They had injuries. Think we could do it even if they're healthy. But I normally do that to give me that room. So when I say the Eagles are going to win 13 games, I'm comfortable about it because vice versa. The games that I said we win, maybe we do win, lose, blah, 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 blah. But I feel good about my predictions at the end. But this is a tough schedule. Overall, what do you feel about the Cowboys week 12? You think they're from week 1? Are they better? Or are they like, oh, man, we hate our coach? Pickens is already screaming at Dak Prescott.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I haven't thought about that. I could see it either way. I'm trying to think back to past years, and if I recall correctly, I feel like they will start fairly hot and then level off about after that. But you said like with some new additions, running back, wide receiver, getting Dak back, new coaching staff.
But real quick, my biggest thing is how do you feel about Schottenheimer? Like, do you know like what if you know much about his background? Like, do you feel like he's ready to lead the Cowboys into being a good team again?
Yeah, and I don't like to pigeonhole these guys into schemes until I really see it because you did that with Kingsbury in Washington, and frankly, a lot of his gimmicky stuff in the past was bad. And they did have gimmicky stuff this year, but they had the personnel to pull it off, and it was great. Like I'm going to give him his flowers. Like Schottenheimer, his pedigree, that West Coast system, under center, play action, quick hitters. Is that what they're going to run? I don't know. I don't think they project as a terrific run team. They've got these explosive wideouts. So I think they're going to cater the offense to Dak. They're going to try to throw it around the yard. Ferguson's a good receiving tight end. I think they want to use Pickens and Ferguson to stretch the field vertically and then have CeeDee Lamb just work his little whip routes and slants underneath and for yak situations. If I were them, I would have tried to bolster the run game a little bit more, and that's where the offense might start to flatten out. Once you've shown all these teams your money pass plays, and then you don't have a run game to lean on, then it might become difficult for them. I will say this, it's crazy that I have to even mention this, but it's stuck out like a sore thumb on film, is they have a problem with that light coming through their window. It completely changes the game. If the game takes place at the wrong time. Players couldn't see. Jalen Hurts is
Mhm.
looking into the heavens. It's a blinding light. Drop passes, missed run fits. It's awful. So I'm not sure about the time of day for that game, but I thought it's worth noting.
No, you're right. That they got to. I'm not gonna lie though. That one picture they had last year, with the Sun and Jalen, it was like epic, cool looking. But yeah, playing in that got to be tough, especially if you if you're called trying to get a go route. You see a nice matchup 1-on-1, no safety help. You trying to throw a go. You're just like, all right, I'm just going to try. You just throw. You're just guessing. Then you really got to go off the chemistry. How normally what kind of velocity do I throw to AJ Brown with? Because I can't see him anymore, But you do got AJ over there. He always open, so
I know.
just throw
I
it
mean,
in the sun.
Jerry Jones has more money than the Rockefellers, but he can't put blinds on that stadium. I mean, what's going on?
Yeah, for sure. All right, week 13. We talked a little bit about Ben Johnson. Now it's another primetime game. The Chicago Bears. See, this is what I like about the season. If you play Chicago Bears early, nobody knows what the Chicago Bears are going to do. Are they going to be the upcoming team? You don't know by week 1 or 2 or 3. But by week 13, they're either going to be the ordinary Chicago Bears, not a playoff team, or they're going to be better, or they're going to, we're going to know who they are. So that's hard for me to pick right now. I think it's an interesting game at home to start the last stretch of games. I'm giving the Bears the benefit of the doubt just because, I'm not the biggest Caleb Williams fan, but I think if you get him, I think he'll be all right. I'm going to give all the Ben Johnson lovers their credit. So I think when you look at the Bears, they got some pieces over there.
Yeah, it's one of the teams I've pinpointed as one of these teams that could vault up the rankings considerably from last year. That's not groundbreaking stuff, but they've got tons of playmakers. They added Burden, obviously the tight end Loveland, to go along with the Dunze and more like they already had. So Ben Johnson, he's got all his shining toys to play around with. I'm sure they'll be cooking up crazy trick plays. Caleb has the arm talent to be able to throw it to all levels of the field and, unlock the playbook. I think if you watch specifically Lions versus Bears from last year, he made some really impressive throws that I'm sure caught Ben Johnson's eye. And he's like, oh, I could work with that. Now, he has an Achilles heel, which is he'll put his feet in cement and throw it flat-footed and airmail passes. So they're going to need to coach him up, speed up his processing for sure, and then just get his footwork to work more in sync with his throwing motion. The offense is going to be good. I mean, you just have all those players together with Ben Johnson. It's going to be good. I do worry about their defense. I think ultimately that'll be the reason they don't win the division and don't make any noise in the playoffs. But you mentioned there's always a game on the schedule where you think Eagles should win and they don't. That's a candidate.
Yeah, that's and you won't be surprised because they're either going to be, over 500, making a playoff push at that time when we invite them to Philly on prime time, or it's going to be like, yeah, the Bears are not who we thought they were type. So we're definitely going to see a lot of information on the Bears, I should say. I do want to talk about the people. So shout out, and this is pretty much what it is. Apparently, yes, the Eagles there got the league for the last 4 unleague opponents. So it's not yet official, but it comes from credible leaks, credible enough for the news, the media, to print. So that's what it was. From when you went to bed last night, there were 4 100% confirmed games. When I hit up Eagle Eric at 4:00 and said I said you want to go live around 7 because the official schedule comes out at 8:00. But by the time I hit up Eagle Eric, there was already a 12 credible leaked confirmed games, 12 of the 17. Then last time I saw it got up to 13, and then he put the rest of them together, and then it got co-signed by every person that you could go to for information on Twitter it was co-signed. Zach Berman then tweeted about the Bucks week 4. I think some of the last ones to come in was the Bucks at week 4, Chargers at week 14, Raiders at week 15, which is we're going to be getting to. That is a Chip Kelly reunion. Chip Kelly coming back to Philly. That Raiders team is a lot better though with Geno and Brock and Genty. We'll talk about it, but this is I would bet my bottom dollar this is what it is. Again, if anything, the bye week and the Cowboys switch. That might be only it. You know what I mean? That could be the only switch, which means Cowboys at week 9 and bye week at week 12. And of course, once the Eagles drop their thing at 8 o'clock, I'm not going to go back live again. But in my video tomorrow, I'm going to do a little small recap on everything. Right, wrong, ugly, sad, which I think it's all right anyways. But yeah, so that's how we all feel about the Bears. Week 14 Chargers.
Well, I will say, I'll add one thing real quick. It's been leaked that the Cowboys bye week is week 10. So that pretty much locks in the schedule we see here. It's all about process of elimination. Which opponents, beat reporters reported certain games, and then it just eliminates that as a possibility. Eventually you whittle it down to this is the only possible schedule based off all that cross-referencing.
Yeah. And he didn't do that with all of them. Again, he got a heavy a 10 to 12 to 13 that were reported by the Jeff McClains and Zach Bermans and all of them, right?
There was 11 at the time. Yeah.
11. But again, we knew it was going to be tough simply because before we saw the lineup in which they were drawn, we knew the players that were on the schedule. But yeah, so week 14, we got I almost said Chicago again. We got the Los Angeles Chargers, Justin Herbert and company. It will be in Los Angeles. It won't be as hot because it will be, later in the season. How do you feel about that one?
I want to address this. Everyone wants to call Lad McConkey a superstar. If you had him on your fantasy team, you're pumped. I'm not ready to go that far. This guy's made of glass. He had the most amount of designer routes in the entire NFL cooked up for him. He's got a rocket arm, accurate quarterback delivering him the ball. So, yeah, he's a nice slot, but I'm not ready to say this guy's anywhere nearing the top 10 receivers like I've seen some people. That said,
he's not the next Cooper Kupp, you're saying, right?
I don't think so. Although maybe he is in the sense that Cooper Kupp only played 1 year full schedule. So he probably is the next.
But
Cooper
that 1
Kupp.
year was triple crown, though.
Yeah.
That was a triple crown
year. He's not like that. He's nothing like that. But the Chargers, their offense is going to be solid for sure, barring injury. But they lost a lot of pieces on that defense. They might see a huge regression on that defense. And I project them to ultimately be roughly the same caliber team that they were last year, which presents favorably to the Eagles. They're a more talented team. And the pieces that are threatening for the Chargers, they're in positions that the Eagles can manage. It's not like they're going to be exploited. For example, if you have a dominant, speedy X receiver and you're lining up on the right and we don't know which cornerback's going to be out there, that might be an issue. You put the guy in the slot, we've got a million guys who can present,
starting with Cooper
basically
DeJean.
Neutralize them. Yeah, Cooper DeJean,
white on white crime,
Makuba. We're gonna have a lot of eyes on McConkey, and I think that bodes well. So I feel really good about that game.
Yeah, and you again, the Chargers. I feel you. I feel like for what they're going to be improved at on offense, their defense, and that's always been the case. You know what I mean? Like Herbert needs more help on defense. Whenever they did have weapons, they always were injured around this time. But I always look at the Chargers like they can get hot any game. Like even when I'm picking them or I'm looking at them in throughout the season, anytime they can put a 30-40 burger on you and beat you. But when they're supposed to win, they don't win. And when you need them to come through late in the season, they just don't do it. So I'm not too worried about them. And for those just tuning in, again, if you take any one of these teams and ask probably Eagle Eric or Philly Mike, you think the Eagles will win? I'm taking the Eagles on a one-off on any of this. One game, I'm taking Eagles, any of this. But you always got to remember, the totality of a season is long. Injuries happen. Mistakes happen any given Sunday. And the way the schedule is, how they set it up with the home away, home away, home away. It's not fun for the Eagles. Like, think about the Eagles last year at the end. Pretty much the last 3 games were either in Philly or a drive down the street. Bro, we didn't get on a plane. We didn't get on a plane for like the last month of football. That ain't going to be the case for stretches of these. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, there's so much parity in football. That's why we watch. That's why they play the games. The coaches don't know what's going to happen. The players don't know what happened. Vegas doesn't know what's going to happen. And the fans sure as hell don't know what's going to happen. So, yeah, we can sit there on paper and say, oh, look, the Eagles are better than all these teams, 17-0. But that's just not
until
how it
proven
works.
otherwise. I'm just kidding. No, I'm with you. But again, it's going to be interesting for sure. Week 15, I still am a big hater of Chip Kelly and all that. And again, I was young. I was a big fan of the Vic, Jackson, McCoy team, even though they didn't really win nothing. Listen, I mean, that season in 2010, I believe it was, when it was Vic, Jackson, Macklin, McCoy, Brent Selleck. When we lost to the Packers, like, I wasn't doing content at that time at all. I was nowhere near doing content. I was a little bit out of high school. I graduated in 2009. So 2010, I'm looking at it like this. I was saying to at least all my friends and stuff, like, whoever wins this game, wild card weekend, Eagles, Packers, that team is representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. I said whoever wins the Eagles and Packers, and it was weird because I thought they were playing the best football at the end. Packers got hot at the end. I said whoever wins this game is going to represent the NFC. And we had some ugly mistakes, missed field goal, late interception, trying to force the ball to Riley Cooper, a lot of dumb stuff. But we were the closest to beating the Packers, and they went on to the Super Bowl. So, that team didn't go far. But again, football is that weird thing where, I don't want to say too much because that's what Ram fans are saying. If we didn't get snow and beat Philly, we probably could have won a Super Bowl. But it's always what ifs, right? So, but I did like that team. That being said, how do you feel about this new Raiders team? Do you think they're going to be able to compete with the tougher AFC, like fringe playoffs? How do you feel about that?
No. I think they're still really bad. They have a few like interesting players, but I look at those players and I'm like, oh, that's a nice candidate to move at the deadline when your team is tanking. Geno Smith, dramatic upgrade at quarterback for sure. And I think Genti's awesome. But it's just like who's on the outside. They moved heaven and earth to get Devontae Adams there. Now he's gone, right? And they have these little speed receivers out there. That's not even necessarily the type of receiver that thrives best with Geno. The defense, they lost Trayvon Merrick, right? Who was like one of their big studs. They've got some nice pieces on the D line with Wilkins and Kuntz coming back healthy, and obviously Crosby. But I view him kind of as the AFC version of the Giants, right? You have this older retread quarterback who's not quite as much of a dual threat as he used to be. You don't really have that many offensive weapons. You got a nice D line and not much after that. To me, that's a 4 or 5 win team, and it's a team the Eagles should roll.
Yeah, especially with Chip as their head coach. He's one and done for me. We'll see if he can make his tenure last a little longer in the NFL this time. But yeah, I'm with you. I like Brock Bowers. I think it would have been a formidable offense if they were able to keep Devontae Adams. You got Adams, you got Bowers, you got Genty, you got Geno. If he plays like he played the latter part in Seattle, he's upgrade, like you said. Crosby still on the defense. That makes that, D-line formidable, but not too much elsewhere. Yeah. And again, we'll be home at that time. So week 15, like I said, the Raiders will be, maybe somebody will have like a nice little highlight on us there, but I don't think anything is going to be worrisome there. Now we get to this weird stretch, week 16, 17, and 18, where it's like, is it going to be 3 monster games where the Commanders are playing us tough both games and the Bills are playing us tough on the road in upstate New York? Or is it going to be you play the Commanders tough, you're in a position and the Eagles to rest them in week 18. As it pertains to the Bills, what if the Bills really put it together and they are able to rest their starters week 17? I don't know. It's going to be tough to see where these teams are at. But how do you feel? We'll combine it. Chat and Eric, Eagle Eric, week 16, 17, 18, Commanders, Buffalo Commanders. Give me your take on all that combined. Chat, let us know as well. But first, let's read this Green Wingman $5 super chat. We appreciate the love and support. Hey, all I ask for is the likes and subscribes and comment regular. The super chats are extra. We appreciate y'all. And for those who were asking about the Jalen Hurts giveaway, it will drop this week. So we only got Thursday and Friday left of videos. So in one of them videos, the random comment on the video that you were supposed to enter, you'll be getting a Jalen Hurts any color you want jersey. But he said, speaking on defense, how confident do you feel in the cornerback 2 position? Good question. I'm going to let Eagle Eric take it first, as he does have a Keely Ringo breakdown on the Eagles Bullpen channel on YouTube. So you can go check that out, but you can listen to what he says here first. And I also am interested in see what he thinks about Adoree Jackson, as I'll give you my take on Adoree Jackson and Keely as well. But go ahead, Eagles, Eric, on that.
Yeah, so the easiest way to watch my film breakdown is Eagles Eric on Twitter. It's right in my pinned post, and you can watch the full thing right there. But I like Keely Ringo. I think his strengths and weaknesses are very defined. As a linear athlete, he's awesome. Physical, will come up and tackle, decent zone eyes, but he's just not good moving laterally. You can think about slants, digs, sharp breaking routes where he may struggle. So that's a starting NFL corner in my book. Obviously, not to the level of Slay, who played, in my mind, very good last year. I also like Adoree Jackson. I think the Eagles started to realize you bring in these guys from the Giants and you put them with a good coaching staff, with better teammates, good organization that's actually a contender. Those guys might just magically get better. Happen with Saquon, might happen with Ojulari, might happen with Adoree Jackson.
It happened with James Bradbury the first year he came. I mean, minus the 2022 Super Bowl, you can't really find anything bad with Bradbury's tape in 2022. He made an all-pro selection that year. 2023 was different, you know what I mean? But Adoree Jackson give us one good year.
No? And if you remember, the Eagles tried to get in a bidding war with the Packers for Xavier McKinney. So I think they've identified as like, hey, if we dip into these Giants players who they failed to get the most out of, you might have something. Adoree Jackson is a good cornerback who is now on the back nine of his career. He projects well to play in off zone. He's a reliable, solid player with good long speed. But if you're the Eagles, you want to get this guy you invested in, who's now going to be 23 years old, in the game. You want to give him the opportunity to win the position. If it's just not clicking for him, you've got a good backup. So in the sense of, do I feel good compared to last year? No, because I think Slay was tremendous. In terms of, do I think it's good enough to get by? I do. And there's one hidden secret here, is that Fangio has a wealth of coverages where if you have one stud corner and the other guy's just all right, you can give him a lot of help. Teams will want to pick on him. And then magically you've got a lot of players helping over there and potentially generate some turnovers. So there's maybe, it's a double-edged sword a little bit, having maybe one guy who's a weaker corner.
Correct. And, you know, with the packages that, the amount of times that Fangio keeps a safety, shells safeties, 2 safeties back, it does help. You know, we're not going to leave these guys on islands often, you know, so that all helps. Pass rush, if the pass rush can even heat up even more in 2025, that's going to help too. I mean, think about it. We had a defense where we had Jalen Mills and Ronald Darby on the outside, 2 guys that never were top. Well, Darby was nice with the Bills when we wanted him, but you know what I mean? Like, pass rush goes hand in hand with the corner play. So, you know, if you're asking guys to do things for a fraction of the time, it makes it that much easier. If you had to guess right now on the spot, week 1 against the Cowboys, is it Adoree Jackson out there or Keely Ringo?
Ringo. I
Respect,
feel good
respect.
about Ringo. How about you?
I'm a big I'm a Ringo fan too. I mean, I got people like what like he's younger than Quinion. You know what I mean? So he's been in the league longer than Quinion, but he's younger. And look, when you are and the reason people talk about him moving to safety and even college scouts said stuff like that is because his body type. That's what limits him from getting in and out of his breaks. When that wide receiver runs a 9 route and stops, it's hard for a guy running a 4.3 at 212 or what is he, 215, 6'1". He got the body frame that is he's a track star straight speed, but all that other stuff is hard for him. But he's been working on it. If Fangio plays it where Quinion's a little off press, you get Keeley more in that, up the press, uses physicality against wide receivers. You jam him for a second or two. Now, with the pass rush being a little bit better, plus the jam, it's even less time for the route to even take place. All that stuff. Cover safeties over the top. You might have Campbell and Zach Vaughn, guys who can play off ball, who can roam the middle, help out on that slant route. You try to slant, and right there, Zach Vaughn reading it. You got Cooper DeJean when we're not playing man. He's in his zone at the nickel position. He can help out on the quick slant on Ringo's side. Blah blah blah. I feel real good about Ringo, and I'm projecting him to take a leap too. But I do like Adoree Jackson in worst case scenarios, and injuries happen. Look at last year. We saw Keeley played a little bit, but Isaiah Rodgers played. Like, you're going to need your depth pieces to come in and play. So you never know when next man up. We were pretty healthy throughout the season last year, but, injuries happen.
I see some people are worried about Ringo saying he can't track the ball. But remember, this guy had an interception in the national championship where he climbed the ladder and made a miraculous interception. He actually has good ball skills. It is a fair criticism to say, like, he'll have a tendency to not turn around and locate the ball. But it's something that could be worked on. And we have the luxury of Christian Parker, potentially one of the best DB coaches in the entire NFL.
Well, how you feel about Mac McWilliams? And I know a lot of people see him playing in the slot or, backup slot or something, but how do you feel about him, getting an opportunity to work on the outside? Little smaller guy, but he has college film that showed he could do it on the outside. When you look at Isaiah Rodgers, when Isaiah Rodgers first got here, his body frame, weight, and size kind of project him to be a slot, but he was like, I'm outside guy, and that's what Vic used him as. Like, how do you feel about Mac McWilliams?
Yeah, I think he's definitely a backup nickel who has the versatility to play on the outside at times. And to me, it's almost cliche to say this, but watching his film, it's amazing how much he reminded me of Avonte Maddox. So if they're thinking they want a Maddox replacement, I think he's perfect. Now, people talk about inside-outside versatility. What I haven't heard discussed is safety versatility. I don't see any reason why he couldn't moonlight there. For people who are not quite as familiar with the fine details of Fangio's scheme, when they buzz that safety down, they ultimately play the same duties that the nickel corners on the other side. So there's potential there. And if you have a guy who can cross-train at 3 spots and has athleticism and motor to just, play fast and, actually give you something, that's a worthwhile, 5th rounder. The idea that he'll win the starting job on the outside, I think, is ludicrous. I see no chance of that happening.
Yo, what's crazy? You described, and that is describing Avonte Maddox. And again, everybody remembers the latter part of Maddox's career, but Maddox's early career, at one time he was a top 3, top 4 slot corner in the game. When the Eagles needed him to play safety, he went back there and did justice there. And he had the versatility to play outside. Now, again, if you look at his totality of his career, where did he get beat the most? Outside, of course, because he wasn't really ever supposed to be there. But he had the versatility. He played outside with the Eagles in certain circumstances throughout his tenure. But he was a jack of do all trades as well. And when he was on, he was on. When his bones started breaking down, it just is what it is at that point,
Well, I see a comment here from Texas Boy. I'm assuming that's a Cowboys fan.
Yeah.
Let's put this up there. Now, I think it's a fair question. Who's gonna stop CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens? Well, I have got names for you. Quinyon Mitchell or Keely Ringo match up fairly well against Pickens, just his skill set.
Because boy
Although,
can't run routes. The boy can't
yeah,
run routes.
he does have sneaky good lateral agility for his size, and that's where like Ringo on dig routes, I could see Pickens giving him issues. But he makes a lot of his yards like with, he once he gets the ball, he kind of turns into a running back. Like he's got good ball carrier vision and burst, but Ringo's a good tackler. And in terms of Lamb, Fangio's got so many coverages. You'll hear terms like Zeus, roll luggage, cone, cut, bracket. This is to put extra eyes on the stud. So we're uniquely suited to be able to take stud receivers out of the game. We did it with Travis Kelce. We did it with a ton of receivers last year. Terry McLaurin the first game, and then he got one on Quinyon on a deep bomb. But overall, that's one thing I'm not necessarily worried about.
Yeah, and look, no slight, Texas boy. CeeDee Lamb is a good receiver. Pickens is a dog. We all watched him in the Steelers. Although when we played the Steelers last time, I think he had 3 targets, 0 catches. I don't know. That's just what the box score says, I think. That being said, look, I watched a couple of your Cowboy film breaker downer dudes, and yeah, put the ball in the air. That's what he always says. That's what he's been saying to Steelers. Just throw the ball in the air. He'll go get it. He got strong hands. He can attack at the catch point, but he's not a route runner. And if Keely going to guard somebody the best, it's that type of player. You want to get physical with a 6'1", 215 person who can run 4-3 straight line? Cool. Like you said, a little dig route possibly, but when he's doing an out route or in route, it's all crossing with the body and the hands. He ain't using his feet to cross, and so I feel comfortable there. And CD's already matched up with the likes of Cooper when he goes inside, and Quinyon outside. So it is what it is. Like I said, pick it. And your team got better, but you act like we didn't play against Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. You act like we didn't play against Mike Evans and Chris Godwin before. Like we've seen some 2 wide receiver sets. We played against Jamar Chase. Oh, T. Higgins wasn't there. I'm about a cap on here.
And I think we were the only team to keep the Ravens to like under 20 points too. So
yeah. So look, you got better. You know what I mean? You got weapons, but you got to block for Dak first so he can get the ball to your boy Pickens. But I know. It's so crazy. You go on Twitter, man, Cowboy fans is like, ooh, they never think they would get a trade like that. And granted, Jerry Jones don't do nothing. So that is like, I mean, we traded for AJ, signing Saquon. We doing big things over here. They make the trade for Pickens, and it's like, they're back.
So they're saying in the chat that Texas Boy is on all of the Eagles live streams.
He's yeah. And look, when the season starts, there's a couple of Cowboy guys who will be in here like notification gang, like bright and early on some just this boy named 5 Rings or something. I don't know. There's a couple of them, but it's all good to have fun. And I don't care. You could troll all you want in there as long as they don't attack my subscribers. They can attack me. I don't care because I have a thing where we don't kick nobody out for trash talk. It's cool. It's part of sports. Eventually, we're gonna get to the time where the trash talk is gonna come into validity, or it's gonna look horrible on you. So it is what it is. It's part of the game for sure. But like coming at the chat and all that, they know what and when they can kick people. But yeah, it's cool. But yeah, like you said, give me your take real quick on these back-to-back 16, 17, and 18 weeks, and then I'll give you mine. We'll talk to the chat for see what they got to say to close it out. And we definitely went longer than what I thought we were going to go, hour and 33 minutes. My wife texted me like twice already.
Yeah. So I do wonder, like, if those last 3 games, it comes down to who's going to win the division. It seems likely, just mathematically, like one team goes 3-0, the other team goes 1-2 or something like that. It changes the whole picture there. So it's going to be building up to that. Is Jaden Daniels going to have a sophomore slump? If you look at all the analytics, it says the Commanders punched above their weight class the whole season, and that they weren't really an NFC Championship team. So, and that, they've got some aging vets on that team. So they might not age like fine wine, and then you get to those later weeks and they're pretty beat up, and then you just got to worry about Daniels, and that's manageable. We did it twice last year, arguably 3 times, except that one crazy game. So it's exciting. The Bills game, like we said, I'm really looking at whoever wins that game. One of those teams is a Super Bowl team, and probably might get some snow there. So there's a chance for an iconic game over in Buffalo.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think week 16 is definitely going to be it's going to be on the road in Washington. They're going to be upset about the NFC Championship games. It's the first time seeing us. It's in their home. The Eagles should be leading the division at that point. But if Washington holds up to their end of the bargain, Washington shouldn't be too far behind us. When week 16, we might have a game or 2 lead on them, maybe 3. I don't know where their bye week is, but it can't be too late anyways. So should be a 1 or 2 3-point week game lead. I'm stuttering now. That's going to be important. But if the Eagles win that game, we go to Buffalo. I think the toughness of the AFC, the Ravens, maybe the Texans getting better, the Chiefs, of course, the Broncos being more tougher this year. Who else is in the I want to say still, huh?
Ravens?
I think I said that. Those are some tough teams. So I don't think the Bills are going to be able to coast. So I think that game will matter to them too. Depending on what happens there, that week 18 in Philly, again, I'm not just trying to say the Eagles are going to run through the schedule. We both talked now for an hour and 36 minutes. It's a tough schedule, way tougher than last year, opponent-wise in general, and the way it was set up with no consecutive home games. A lot of primetime games, a lot of different days of the week. We're playing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, all that stuff. All that being said, I think it's the Commanders' job to keep up with us. Because even though our schedule's harder, I still see us coming out, worst case scenario, 12 win-ish, I didn't really do my due diligence, but I don't think no less than 12 wins. So that being said, if we are doing what we're supposed to, we should be able to dictate what that week 18 game is, and if Washington ain't close enough to us, then you rinse and repeat what you did in 2024 by sitting guys,
If you look at this, go ahead.
No, especially if they are making the playoffs, and that that's one less game they can see us do what we're really supposed to do in case we do match up in the playoffs. Again, all that talk about beating a team 3 times and all that stuff, that's all true. I'm not saying I'm happy we lost to the Commanders that game and Jalen Hurts was knocked out of the game, didn't play, blah, blah, blah. But, I think if we could rest our players in week 18 after beating them in week 16, it gives them less of a look at us again. So that when we play them in the playoffs, if it happens again, things can happen to our benefit.
Yeah, I don't think the Commanders have to worry about the playoffs. They'll have to worry about their tea time around a mink.
So you think that you don't see them making the playoffs?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I think they're going to take a step back.
I didn't look at their schedule at all.
It's bad. It's really tough.
It's a tough. All right.
Yeah.
That would be lovely because, at least on an everyday, daily living in the Twitter sphere, right? It's like the Commanders have grown hair on their chest so much after the season. So if they take a dip from the NFC Championship to not making the playoffs, and mind you, there's 7 teams that make the playoffs now. Like if you don't make the playoffs in 20, you're horrible because they even opened the door to how many, what is it? 16 teams, 16 teams in the NFC, and 7 of them make the playoffs. That means only 9 people are sitting at home.
So their schedule is roughly what the Eagles is, but the changeovers are Atlanta, Seattle, and Miami. So it's easier. It's easier than the Eagles, but it's still a tough schedule.
Yeah. I think Atlanta might, it's definitely tough. I think now that I'm thinking about it, I didn't see what their schedule looks like with all their leaks, but on a projected win thing, we were like 4th and they were like 7th or 8th or something like that. Still top 10. So
the thing is, we saw it kind of as the year went on that eventually the jig is up with that Kingsbury offense. Eventually teams know what to do with that inside read. Eventually they know what to do with the bubble screens. When you turn them into a team that has to do true drop back concepts, they simply just don't have the firepower to do that. And they don't have enough juice in the run game to sustain drives that way. They just were buoyed by the legs of Daniels. And he's so slender, you don't want to have him rush for 800 yards every year. So there's just a lot of things that are pointing to they're likely to take a step back. If people recall, Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu were all pros, which is mind-blowing to think about. I mean, one guy is practically getting Social Security. So that, McLaurin's up in his 30s now, I believe. So I don't necessarily think they're going to be a juggernaut, even if Daniels takes a step forward.
I like that. I like that. Real quick, and again, shout out to the chat for staying tuned with us all night. Still got over 400 people in here. Hit the like, subscribe. Again, you'll be seeing Eagle Eric on here and some recorded videos and also some live streams throughout the year, even the off season, talking football, whether it's just chopping it up, making fun of the Cowboys, Texas boy, or actually breaking down the nitty gritty of the game. Tomorrow, he has a Moro Ajomo breakdown. It's going to be live, right?
Live, 7 Eastern. And if you guys are interested in D-line play or Ajomo specifically, don't miss it. You are going to be stunned. This guy, I don't want to give it away. If you were here in the beginning, I kind of talked about it, but you won't regret it.
Yeah, so definitely follow him on Twitter. Check him out on Eagles Pin Pull. It's live at 7:00. I might even just post it in my community post tomorrow, like around 4 to remind y'all 7:00, blah, blah, blah. That's all we wrote. That's all she wrote for this one. I appreciate you coming on, Igor. It was fun. Like I said, the crew stayed in most of the time watching. Look, we already got one sending. I'm awake. Said I'm already subbed. Shout out to you. There we go. You got anything you want to say to finish it up before we get up out of here?
So throughout the season, I'm going to be doing what I hope is the most in-depth game previews, talking about the schematics, players for all of our opponents, kind of really focusing on the opponents and what they do. So tune in if you're interested in that kind of stuff. Game previews over on Eagles Pin Pull Network. And then I'm going to drop in from time to time here and chop it up with all you guys. For people who don't know, I've been a fan of Philly Mike since he had just maybe a few thousand subscribers. So it's super awesome to see how far you've come. So just pumped to be able to collab with you.
Appreciate it. And I love your football knowledge on Twitter, and in general, for sure. It's funny, real quick. I was just reading, Texas boy said, you can't spell the Eagles without an L. Spot said, he said, well, I mean, having Dallas with 2 it's not Cowboys, but you got 2 L's and come on now. It's funny, but the back and forth is always great for the chat while they listen to the Eagles talk over here. I go by Philly Mike again, regular schedule program throughout the week. We're going to be doing more live streams, whether I'm by myself with Eagle Eric, LB, other creators. I keep saying it. The video's coming, but the lives will be coming too. But if you are in the Jalen Hurts giveaway, stay tuned. That's coming up as well. Until next time, you know what time it is. Eagles going 17-0. We out. Peace.